Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's JamBox Tuned In. That's right, we're bringing it back, and this time we're bringing it to YouTube. Before we get into it, though, here's a quick word from our sponsor. Hibiscus, a lush and invigorating tea. Bright, tart, and a touch sweet, this passion-inspired blend is crafted with hibiscus, lemongrass, rose petals, cranberry, spearmint, orange, and lemon peel. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary. Make sure to go click the link below and check them out. I guarantee you're going to like it. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guest.
What's up? It's Figure 8.
Hello.
Howdy.
Thank you so much for joining us, and welcome back.
Having me. Yeah,
glad to have you. If y'all haven't checked it out yet, go check out the episode with the Antelope Fisherman. Figure 8 and a bunch of other rad dudes are there on that one. You can learn a little bit more about his foundation. But this episode is a little bit different, and I'm super excited.
Selfish time.
Yeah. We're going to talk about your newest album, the Lil Fidget EP.
LP.
Yep. Oh, I have it typed wrong. My bad.
No, it's all good. At our release party, we kept saying EP too.
Okay.
It's a common mistake.
Fair enough. Well, either way, super excited to get on into it.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I mean, we're going to, in true show fashion, we're going to get the easy one out of the way. How did you pick the name?
It's a reference to the Slim Shady LP.
Okay.
Real early on. So was the cover. That was a decision we made. And yeah.
Hell yeah.
I was embracing it. Embracing the white boy from Detroit. That is who I am. So like.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And then what made you decide to go with 22 tracks?
I made maybe 100 for the album specifically, and dwindling that down to 30 was difficult enough. So I was like, it's going to be long. And like, I knew this might be the only solo album I make. Maybe. Like, I don't want to close the book on it for sure, but it may be. So, I wanted to make sure it was thick and had stuff on it. But also, if you look back at the Slim Shady LP and the Marshall Mathers LP, what I'm referencing, they were like 17, 18, 19 songs each. So
true.
With the skits on here, it is a little bit less, but yeah.
Oh yeah. And what I noticed that you keep referencing correlation to Eminem, and I know there's a little bit of that actually in a couple of the tracks themselves.
Yeah.
Was that kind of a defining like element of the album for you?
Yeah, like I don't remember what song it was, but there was a song that I kind of had referenced Eminem as sort of like a nod to like I'll take that. Like I resented it for a while. I was like, just because I'm white and I rap and I'm from Detroit and our styles are similar doesn't mean. But when I got out here, I embraced it more because it wasn't so common. You know what I mean? I was it was a defining part of what made me different so much more than what it was when I was in Michigan.
That's fair.
But a couple of the tracks started to lean towards like not his albums per se, but I felt like the diversity of the way that there were some pop tracks, some personal things, some posse cuts, and a few of the songs I had interpolated. I always say that wrong. Whatever the fuck.
Interpreted?
His like hooks or cadences. So I was like, wouldn't it be cool if we just, I'll name it after my alter ego too. We'll do the whole we'll remake the cover. I'll take my son. I didn't have a daughter, but I'll take my son to the bridge and we'll do the whole. And then it just became an effort of, well, how many ways can we nod to it now so that it feels unified? You know what I mean? So like, it was a decision early on. It wasn't like we finished 100 tracks and I went, what if we called it? I knew what I was making these songs for.
Which ones sound like Eminem?
Yeah, like I wanted it to not just sound like I was emulating him for 22 tracks, more so the the structure.
Yeah.
There is a few songs that are a direct nod to his style, but very few of the songs actually sound like something Eminem
No,
would
definitely.
make.
And I mean, I listened to the whole album. I can definitely agree with that. It's not like I was hearing it and I was like, I know what this is from.
People expect too, so it's like a nice surprise. And then there's the few where you're like, oh, he's doing some Eminem stuff.
Yeah.
It's like a tip of the hat more so than a spoof or a direct. I wanted it to be an homage, not
Yeah. No, I mean, I think you nailed it for sure.
Thank you.
Since you mentioned it already, I appreciated the skit. Like,
I didn't want to overdo it with a bunch of them.
No, but I heard it and it was short. It was to the point, but it happened.
That's my real manager too.
Yeah.
I don't know if he loved doing that by any means, but he did it for me.
But hearing it and even like just having that instance of it, it immediately felt like nostalgic, but not in almost not like a callback kind of way. It kind of just felt like you were like, oh,
I remember this,
cool.
like putting on a jacket, like at a Goodwill, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't my jacket, but it is.
But it's a good jacket.
It feels good. I've been in this before.
It felt like it made me smile. Like, honestly, just from its presence.
That was the point.
Yeah,
I know it's never going to be the song that streamed the most.
No.
40-second, 30-second skit on the album, but I love its placement.
You know, it may not lose too many, though, because it's in between two tracks. And by the time you notice
that this isn't actually the intro to the song, it's a precursor. Yeah.
And I mean, you know, some artists now sneak it in as just like the end of a track instead of making it
still attached to it. I didn't want to make it that way in case people wanted to.
Yeah. Well, that and I just, it's a skit. I think it's cool to acknowledge. It's cool to see it in the lineup.
We actually shot a video to the song that follows that skit. My manager was visiting from the UK. He stays out in the UK now. So like, I was like, let's film you pretending to be on the phone for a second. So the actual video for that song that follows it will have a tiny little clip of in the beginning pretending to leave that voicemail. So
I love that.
Yeah, I do too.
That's fun.
I'm excited for that.
That's like an almost like Gorillaz attachment.
Yeah, that's,
you know what I mean?
Those are the things that are servicing myself. Like, it's not me trying to impress the audience, but it ends up being the thing that like your core audience likes the most. So
that, and it's just, I think the fun creative choices are the ones that we get the most control over.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like as artists, as creators, like the decisions that we make that aren't like business moves. They're just
that's going to make me more money. It might
they're there for the
more views. It's for me as an artist.
Yeah. And it makes your heart happy.
Yeah.
And that's important too.
That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. You should enjoy what you're doing and have some fun along the way.
Or I'd just go get a job.
Yeah, boo. I mean, thank you, my employer. But boo. But getting back to the album, and I think that's really cool that that's like such a recurring element and an intentional one at that. But underneath that, is there a recurring message or element in the music itself?
I really just wanted to cover, I felt like there's a lot of topics that I had beaten to death, and for good reason. I spent a lot of my life making poor decisions. It wasn't like a brief year of my life that I talk about all the time.
It wasn't a quick trip to Cancun.
It was being a piece of shit for 8 years. Like, that's most of your cognizant life anyway. I'm not going to rap about being 7 forever. But I really wanted it to be the first book in my series. So, like, I wouldn't say it contains a topic other than maybe redemption.
Yeah.
Because any song where I talk about what I'm doing well now, it is prefaced in the same song by everything I had to go through. But every song where it is sorrowful, I would say there is at least something about coming out the other side.
Yep.
So, like, it's just that if you can go through all these horrible things that I went through and still make things that sound happy and still and find the things that you're okay with while accepting that these things did happen to you.
Yeah.
Because I struggled with that even in my music. I was really good at talking about how horrible things were without saying what happened. So I tried to say what happened more on the album.
Okay.
Like the fish stuff, I talk about being poor as a kid but never like, what happened?
Yeah.
Why was it happening? How did it affect you?
Yeah.
So I try to do more of that here for sure.
Interesting. And it definitely, that is definitely a recurring element that is noticeable throughout it as well. So I think getting that message through really stood out.
Yeah.
And then as far as
the creation of the album, because again, it's a girthy work. It's 22 tracks. That's
it's no chode. I tell you what.
Was all of it made in any one place, or was any large part of it, or did you do each track individually, kind of like you do with the Fish?
I did maybe out of the 100 songs, not all of them, but I did at least 65 of the songs I made for the album in one place. It was Hinterland Sound. It was attached to the Wonder Ballroom over like north-ish Portland.
Yep.
I love that place. Shout out to Ryan, the engineer there. We've kind of lost contact, but I will never forget the immense amount of work he did. And then we did all the mixing sessions there, all the mastering there, all the sound effects, all the sound design, every single thing we did there. And then I ended up making a song much later into the process after I had already thought it was done.
Oh, gotcha.
Here. So there's just track 13, Amy, was made at 11 studios in Vancouver, and then everything else was at Hinterland in Portland while they were still open.
Oh, okay. Hell yeah. Well, it's cool that you at least got to do most of it all in one place.
Yeah, I set out to make an album. It wasn't like I was just accruing songs over some time. I was going to the studio at least once to twice a week. And,
putting in the work for sure.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And then, my thing's not moving here now. What are we doing here? All right, now, before we get into the songs, because I want to break them down individually, or at least a few of them. We're not going through all 22. But I do want to point out the fact that even though it's a hefty album, almost, or at least half of them, I think 12 of them are you individually.
Yes.
And still that's 10 tracks with features on them.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm going to shout out the people that have been on the show, Scooter Rogers, Swiggle Mandela.
Yep.
And then there are a few other features. What was the deciding factor on having those features?
The only two artists that appear on the album that are not an Antelope Fisherman are Scooter Rogers and Ray Ray. They're both on the same song. Ray Ray and Scooter are just straight up two of my favorite artists that I've met and talked to and seen. Like, I'll listen to their songs. Ray Ray put out a song, I think it's called Conviction, but the hook's like, yeah, I got shot. And I love it. And it came out right during a time where one of the Fish had gotten shot. So like it
really resonated.
We were taking care of him, and like we got to sing along to this thing. Like, it was a bright point for me in a dark time.
Yeah.
His music. And Scooter we've shot in videos for and done shows with, and I've always been such a huge fan of his cadence and his performance live and on the track.
Yeah.
So I wanted to do something for Portland because I'm not from here in the same way. I wanted to express my love for Detroit on the album, but I wanted to pick people outside of my friend group so that it wasn't just didn't make it seem like I was just trying to put on for the homies. Like, I was still trying to include this city.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it was just like Ellis. I dropped 3 albums with in over the course of my career, and he's one of the main leading forces of the Fish, so having a song with him was important to me. I've dropped 2 albums with Swiggle now. He was the first person to kind of take me under his wing when I got here, so that was important to me. And then it from there it became just trying to service the songs. Like, I knew I needed Swiggle, and I wanted to represent those chapters of my life on it, but then like a lot of the songs didn't have features until we did a lot of those like Motown sessions, what we called them, where there'd be like 4 or 5 of us and some of like the more not musical people in the group. Like, my manager was there.
Yeah.
Jimbo, who makes beats and has his podcast, was there, but also he's just an older generation of listener. And then we went through, and some of the songs people wanted to take off, but they suggested maybe, hey, get this Fish to sing that hook for you, or get this Fish to add this verse. Because it wasn't like I was looking to buy or try and get clout from other people at that point. It was like, if one of the people immediately around me can make this song better or make it worth it, then let's do that.
Yeah.
So the rest of them came from that. Like, I only wanted to pull from my friends at that point. So it's like, Oh My God was easy because Young Ned came and laid guitar on it halfway through. And then after he did that, I think Jimbo had the idea to be like, even if it's short, get Tag in there to sing like a little bridge thing. And then that's what's on the song. And like, early was just me at a time, and then that's how those features ended up. There was people being like, ask J Mello, ask Coda B, ask,
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I mean, I appreciate that was the kind of the driving thought behind it, to have just like, the homies.
Yeah, the biggest thing was, if this is the only solo album I make, I want
make it
to
count.
love it for 10, 20, 30 years. I want my kids to be like, oh, my uncles were on this thing that my dad cared about. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right, now let's go ahead and let's talk about some of the tracks. And I'm going to just go down kind of in the order that I have them written down.
Okay.
And we're going to start with Yoshi's Island.
Oh, wow. All right.
Yeah. So that one, I mean, first of all, I thought it was interesting that you chose to have the kind of the high pitched top voice throughout most of it.
It's yes.
And it grabs you. Like, it really, especially because it's like,
you're either going to love that song or hate it.
Yeah. And up to that point, the tracks that kind of precede it, they kind of have a similar feel to them. So that's the first one that you're like, oh, okay, here is.
It felt like an extension of Early, which comes before it, which is another minute and 50-second pop-ier song. But it is very much so like, we're going to break out of this area these first 7 or 8 tracks we're in.
Yeah, exactly. And then the next one after that, just quick note, oh my God. It's just such a vibe.
I love that song.
Yeah, like the whole song from start to finish, you're just like, yeah.
And that's Isam Gemini Deeb, who executive produced my album. He produced much of the 70 songs that I made, and like, I would say 11 or so of the tracks that are on the album are from him, but like, he created the whole direction we were going in for the album. So like, he did so much work to get us to where that is.
Yeah.
I'm glad that seems to be one of people's favorites, and it's doing really well on streaming right now. So to have it be one that's, got two of my best friends and someone who helped me make I love that song. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a jam. And then Charming was also a vibe.
Man, that almost didn't make it. That was my manager thing, and a couple of those meetings being like, you fucking talk about your goddamn, talk about your feelings. You're getting that on. You're not getting out of this.
No, well, what I thought was interesting too is it almost has a like a Post Malone cadence to it.
It does,
but not like you were trying, like you weren't trying to do the really like vibrato-y.
No, that wasn't
like it had this almost like this like sing-songy element to it that is like indicative of kind of the mood that his sound sets.
Yes.
And I thought that stood, like, not that you were trying to replicate it, but that there was a characteristic that comes from that I could compare it to, that I thought
I don't know
really
who
enjoyable.
it was, but you're for sure not the first person to reference Posty in regard. I have an AI version of that song with Post Malone singing just because we wanted to. So it had been talked about.
Release it. No, I'm kidding.
But yeah, that is it's funny because I was trying to, the lyrics were completely different, but when I had first recorded it with the same flow for the hook, but it was a different song, I was trying to emulate the Lil Baby and Gunna Drip Too Hard with flow, but I kept getting singier and was like, I have to leave parts of these on and start over, because I really liked the beat and I really liked like my melody, but I didn't like where it was going. So to start trying to make something emulating Lil Baby and have everybody tell me it sounds like Post Malone is crazy. I love that.
What a weird turn of events.
Yeah.
I mean, it's still a super solid track though.
Thank you. Yeah, it is one of my favorites. I just didn't think other people would like it, and everybody preliminary before the album came out was like, they will. Like, put that on there.
That seems to be the case, especially with more like melodic songs. I'm finding, especially it's like, I've sat down and talked to a couple people who have experienced this now, and that seems to be just the recurring element. And I wonder if it has to do with like the musicality of it. If maybe there's a discomfort in the fact that it's more of a melodic choice.
It's verbally and vocally, it's vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not just the things I'm talking about. It is how it is sonically presented is very vulnerable, that type of song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate that you left it in.
Thank you. I'm glad I did.
Yeah. And then the next one I want to talk about, and this one I'm sure you'll have a bit to say about it, because it's the only one that didn't get recorded where everything else did, and that's Amy.
Yep.
And I mean, like, I only have descriptive words. I don't even have like a breakdown of it, but it was just because it was like, it was raw, it was tough, it was gritty. Like it had it had this edge to it, and I even have here, it was vulnerable. Like it like every single word in it felt so intentional to like tell that part of your story.
Yeah, and it's almost entirely hook. It's like 100 bars of that. It's 160 bar song is the hook.
It's a very like dense hook, though. You know what I mean? Like the message is so there that it's like, by the time you get to it,
performed different. The I think it appears 3 times. The third time it is performed different, so there is a bit of a variation. But yeah, that's why I was very adamant to not record something, especially after the studio had closed. I was like, well, that's for sure, this is the album. I'm not gonna go. But the guys over at 11 were kind enough to try and match the mastering to the rest of the album. And yeah, so like once that song was done and I was really getting ready to put the album out, I was like, it just has to be on here. It's just it fits this. And it didn't originally have that name. I had a couple of names bouncing around, but then I thought of, on the Marshall Mathers LP, Eminem had Kim, which is a woman named after a song with 3 letters that was a starkly different genre than the rest of the album. So I was like, this feels like it fits what we were trying to do here. Yeah. So if it serviced the album, I was willing to make a compromise. And it's definitely, I don't want to say it's like the most different track on the album, just because the album is so diverse in its presentation. That was the goal. But it had a very different energy to it. Yes. And it was placed well. I think that was really welcomed. It's 13, right? Yeah. So it's right around that halfway point. It's kind of the end of that type of song on the album. You shift into something else from there. Yeah. And I mean, this next song I'm going to bring up is a perfect example of that. That's Coffin. Yeah. Oof. That is. I mean, first of all, the beat slaps. That is so fun to perform. Yeah. We have such a good time with that. And just the in that second half where it just gets just super hype out of nowhere. I enjoyed that. And then I made 2 of my friends scream with me on the last hook just to give it that. Yeah, that's what I was saying, is that part where it just like everything just kind of explodes and you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. And that, again, it just a really good spot in it where it's like it kind of reinvigorates you. It revitalizes your listening. I've had people tell me that the switch from Coffin to Ellie Goulding comes after it. They have to like check their Spotify to make sure it didn't shuffle, or because it's so, which is why the skit that's before Coffin, Max, he says, I picked up the dresses you ordered, but the bodies aren't fitting in the trunk. We got to deal with that. So Coffin was us dealing with the bodies, and then Ellie Goulding is us. Like that was the most biggest example of the diversity I had as an artist. So like, I know it's jarring, but I wanted that to be like, he is going to scream very loudly when he is angry, but also, what size dress do you wear? We're going shopping later. Yeah. So like, I wanted to have that be unified. So that's also kind of why the skit was there. I always planned on having a skit, but I was like, if I could explain why we're going to go from 100 to 0 real quick. Yep. That would be a cool way. Yeah. And coincidentally, Ellie Goulding was the next one I was going to talk about, because again, just another vibe. Like I loved the beat in that track. Thank you. Like, I had a few people hit me up and say Ellie Goulding was the one that's going to get us out of the hood. So I got to get it. It's definitely a vibe. And the guitar was such a good touch. We had a saxophone on it at one point. I don't think the final album version, we ended up keeping it, but I tried a lot of stuff with that song. I really wanted it to be a certain way, and I'm real happy with how it turned out. Yeah, no, definitely a jam. But I think what might have been my favorite track was Throwing Elbows. Oh, wow. Yeah. What a journey. I loved the variety. The beat change catches people off guard. Like, not just you change up a lot in it too. Like, like how you deliver, and like it felt intentional, but it didn't feel like you were just trying to like
fit in as many things as you could.
No, I was trying to make it sound like I was featuring myself in some ways. Like I tried to change my voices enough that it felt like it could be.
You know, it reminded me of, like, weirdly enough, a strange music collaboration, like an early strange music collaboration.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Like when you had, you know, a bunch of the dudes together. I can't believe I can't remember the name of the group now. That's going to kill me. What was some of the early... They had like a small name.
Crew.
No, it's gonna drive me crazy. Somebody put it in the comments, but like there was a name.
Aficionados.
Yeah, there was a name that they like went under for a little bit. Either way, like it had kind of that feeling to it because it all felt very like well delivered, but it felt so different. It felt like a room of people just kind of like presenting themselves, but well.
That's one of the only ones where I was like, let's try and emulate this current era of Eminem to top it all off.
Yeah.
It'll have a hook because I want to create songs right now. There's like, I'm not opposed to having one of those intro songs where you're just running through rapping or if you're telling a whole story, but I was really focused on like composing complete songs with this. So like, I was like, how do I set out to do what he's doing right now while also still staying within the confines of this album?
Yeah.
And that's why we have the beat change and then the revert back to the original beat at the end. Because I was like, this feels like something he would do too. Like a wink at the audience, like, hey, we're back at the original shit. But that is the first half I wrote during the time I was making the albums, and like the second, like when the beat changes, I wrote that during making the albums. But the very last, like before the hook, there's a sprint of like maybe even 24 to 32 bars that I wrote like right when I moved out here. And I don't know why I kept them on like a piece of paper in a shoebox. And I was like, I'm going to pick some piece of paper out of this shoebox and it is going to be on my album. So like when I went to record that, I was like, this is the perfect song. So I went through my shoebox to find something that I had a younger me had written so that I could have some sort of like, I don't know. It felt like a cool Easter egg for me.
Yeah.
Like this part of it to close out the album at the end was the newest me and the youngest me making this song together in a way.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I have to say, now that we've gone through, you know, all the ones that I'll have to talk about, and we've reached the end proverbially of the tracks I can get through. I really appreciate the intention behind everything that you did for this album.
It was a lot.
I mean, it is a lot. Like, you know, it's an hour and 6 minutes of music. And that's, you know, like that is an experience when you go cover to cover. So I think especially for something that long, it's easy to get lost in it really quickly. It's easy to just
to become a lot of songs.
Yeah,
for sure.
So I think that you strategically put a lot of really good songs in a lot of really good places. I mean, you had a ton of stellar features. You had a really, really good design to it. And again, just from talking about it, you've clearly put thought behind it. And seeing what you've done with your rollout thus far, like it seems like a lot of effort went into this and it paid off.
Yes, this was I had done 500 songs with my group, so I was like, if I'm going to do this by myself, it's going to be the only project theoretically in which there's not 30 people who have equal say to me, so that I have to work around. And not that I have a problem with that, but let's take the advantages that making a solo album and really, really run with it. So like I had whiteboards filled with notes, I had notebooks on notebooks and notes, and that's part of why I wanted to record all of it in one place. Not that I feel like obviously every engineer has an impact on your final product, but a lot of engineers just want to make your vision the dream, and some engineers want to have be like an extra member of the band. And I think both of those things can be important depending on what you're doing.
Yeah, what you need.
But having someone that had seen me work on it every single week, heard all of my notes, knew what the final idea was, that means the entire time he had in his head too, we're trying to make this project for this guy. But if there's ways we can homage old Eminem albums to this theme, or if I have some Michigan idea or whatever. So like a lot of sound effects and stuff was him knowing what my end goal was. A lot of like vocal effects and mixing choices were him for a year, 2 years, knowing what my end goal was. So like that was a huge help in keeping that consistency. And also I had another guy that I'd be like, should this one be on the album? And he had heard to length every of the other 100 songs. He could confidently be like, yeah, this is better than a lot of what we did, and it fits this better as well. So like I owe a lot of the consistency in the behind the scenes to Ryan, who was working there at the time. Yeah.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, we've kind of come to the end of just the general list of. I've got one more, but we always save one for the end.
Sure.
But before we wrap it up officially, are there any other talking points you would want to share, like fun stories that, like, you know, I just maybe wouldn't have thought to ask about?
Nothing in like particular. It was an intense 2 years that we were also making the Fish album during, and I was working on Noise from the Void, my rock album, at the same studio, so it was alternating days. It was I would like to say at the very least that it was really special to me to see all these people that I had put on for with my whole soul return that for me, like every session, because man, other than I think Ray, every single feature recorded at Hinterland with me as well. So I was in person with Ray had to send him to me. He was out of town or something, but even Scooter, who isn't in the group, I didn't expect him to just be willing to show up, showed up. So like everybody really, especially the Fish, really treated it with the respect that I was treating it, or treated their music. And that was really, not that I expected less from my friends, but it didn't involve them. Like it did, but this isn't for you or your legacy. This doesn't mean nearly as much to you, but everybody who came in gave it that respect. And that is one of the most special things to me about the album, because I've seen everybody record 150,000 times at this point. The way they handled this thing that I said was mine and belonged to me was really special. For sure.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
All right, now, like I said, we've got one last question to go, but before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second.
Take it.
As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary. Make sure to click the link below and go check them out. Guarantee you're going to like it. But with that being said, the final question. Out of the entire album, what is your favorite song to perform?
Oh, well, that's a bit easier of a question, I would say.
I'm not going to make you pick your favorite. It's your music. You know what I mean? But performance-wise.
Probably in an empty room, like in a room by myself, probably Oh My God. Like, I don't care if there's 100,000 people there or one person that like, I have fun singing it. I have fun, like, me and Ned do this back-to-back thing while he's playing the guitar riff. Tag tries to come out from this. Like, it's just so much fun. It is, like, and Young Ned and Tag are who I started the Fish with, so I think it's cool that those two guys, who are my oldest friends, essentially, are on that track. It feels like a big full circle moment, but if it's a room full of people, it's by far Happy Meal. Everyone knows it for some reason. I didn't intend for it to be the single. I didn't intend for it to be the big one. But for 2 straight years now, I've had people. I posted a clip of it and people demanded I drop it. So it ended up being the first thing I dropped for it a year or two ago when I was still working on it.
Yeah. No, I remember when that came out.
It is, to this day, like maybe a month ago, I had a show out here and people Uber Eats Happy Meals for me to sign and take pictures with. Like, it is.
Oh my God.
There is something about that song
that's incredible, actually.
Yeah.
As a marketing move.
Yeah. Like,
genius.
I'm fucking holding a Happy Meal box against my junk with some people, like, taking pictures. But yeah, that song changed my life. And again, recently, like, the video had been out for 1.5 years, and I posted a tiny clip from the behind the scenes, me half naked, holding a Happy Meal box, and WTF Portland posted it, and now I have this whole new wave of people that are discovering this song that, like, my fans and Fish fans had known about, because I even performed Happy Meal at when we were on tour with the group. if there wasn't that many of us there, or we had a particularly long set, and everyone would be like, well, throw Happy Meal in there because our crowd knows it and we all know it to hype you up and stuff. So when that happened, the video got posted. I remember there was this whole wave of thousands of messages of people being like, where can I find this song? Have you put it out yet? And I'm like, it's been out there. But it's nice because there's people that come to shows now, and you got the two kinds of person. Someone who's heard Happy Meal, like my core fans that are down to come to every show, that are like, I'm excited to sing that along with you. And then the people that are just now learning what that is, being like, hey, are you going to do the one from Instagram? Are you going to do the one where do you take your shirt off still? Like, is that? Yeah, we do a whole thing where a lot of the times right as it starts, one of the fish will go, if you guys start throwing money on stage, he'll take his clothes off. And I do. Yeah. I will. Yeah. I always
I feel like you would have done it for free.
Allows. Yeah, I'll take my shirt off. Enough people pull their phone out, I'll do just about anything. Like,
well, y'all heard it here first.
Absolutely. You got any dumb ideas, just make sure you got a phone, because I'm not one of those guys that's starving for clout.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trying to, like, I don't need to have a pair. I'd rather pay the same amount of price some designer clothes cost me on a reel that I think will reach people. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about the views, but it's about the views to me. I'm trying to entertain as many people as I can, not look as cool to as many people as I can.
Honestly, I feel like just from what I see of your content regularly and things like that, I just feel like you're just kind of there to have fun.
Yeah.
Like that really seems to be the message. Like, you do a bunch of goofy stuff, but you don't like make a message out of it. You know what I mean? You're not here to like preach a view or an opinion. You're doing what you vibe with, and you seem to be enjoying it while you're doing it. I mean, I feel like that one video is probably a little cold, but
sure. I obviously have like stuff I'm super passionate about, like politically and humanitarianly, but like I have relatives and friends from every single place on this earth, and I think the beautiful thing about music is it opens the door to that kind of thing. Like, I don't think I would think or be as good of a person as I am without the things that music either brought my attention to or made me feel bad about, or all that kind of stuff. And it's, if someone would have just walked up to me and told me, hey, you're not supposed to think this way, when I was a 13-year-old kid, I'd been like, fuck you, I'm gonna think it twice as hard now.
Yeah.
But like, it's the open doors to conversations with people that are like you without them being like you. Like, the fact that I have fans that are 60 years old and I don't think would be cool if their kids got face tattoos or started rap. The fact that I can open that door by just being myself and being entertaining, I think that's the point of Happy Meal isn't to promote McDonald's or to show someone how good of a rapper I am. It is to entertain someone while like being able to be like vulnerable. I think is one of those only words I keep coming back to. It's like there is things about me that are only about me in this song. There are things that are emotional, but you're moving from punchline to joke to childhood story so fast. It's not like I'm trying to bum you out. I'm almost just trying to be like, make it so that you're having enough fun that if you also had a shitty childhood, you get to be like, I relate to this person without just having to sit in your trauma.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, obviously there's songs where it's like, we're just going to be sad for this 3 minutes. But I think a lot of the album, it's like, whether it's heartbreak or childhood shit or violence and that kind of stuff, it's like, we'll touch on it. So if you relate to that, take that with you. But also let's just keep it.
Yeah, you don't have to, it doesn't have to be a bummer. Yeah.
Yeah, life being a bummer doesn't have to be a bummer.
Exactly.
Taught me that, I think.
Exactly. Hell yeah. All right. Well, we've come to the end of this, but usually, like I said, I would wrap it up with the last question, but I want to give you this moment. Do you want to, like, shout out a bunch of people, say thank you, get that all out in one big moment here at the end?
Yeah. Let me thank my wife and kids off top, my partner and our children, that we're doing our best to make it to adulthood before shove them out a nest. Jim and I, Deeb, Esau, my brother, the fact that, I don't know if this will work, but if he'll put a picture over it if it doesn't. I just made more work for him. The fact that we made this thing together means so much to me. I wouldn't have my sound. The Fish wouldn't have their sound without you. All my friends, the Cordetta brothers and the Fish that appeared on the album. I wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys. And Plunge Records giving Noise from the Void and me in turn all the opportunities that they have. And you. you for this opportunity to be here and talk about my album, and for listening to the album. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, thank you for putting it out and sharing your
To everybody
thoughts with it.
who listens to the album. If you listen to it once, listen to one song, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah. And during that moment, I'll put like the ats and plugs and things so they can know where to go check it out.
It's already gone. I was just trying to do what he does.
All right, but we're going to get up on out of here. Thank you so much for joining us and for taking the time to talk about the album with us.
Thank you for having me. It's a good time as always.
Hell yeah. This has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Figure 8.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap.
This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.